Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Polkadot live stream. Today, we're with the folks from Aventus and Sidetail. We're really happy to have them here. We have some exciting use cases to talk about, as well as Aventus 2.0. Today with us, we have Dave, who's the engineering team lead at Aventus, Alan, the co-founder, and we also have Mark from Sidetail, the founder and chief investment officer, I believe, at Sidetail. So why don't we just go straight to you, Alan, and maybe you could just tell the audience a bit about Aventus and what it is that you guys focus on, what it is that you guys do.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for inviting us here today, Evan. So Aventus is all about onboarding enterprises to Web3. We've been around since 2017 and gone through a variety of different phases, focused initially on ticketing until COVID kind of made that a bit more tricky. But having helped businesses from the early days figure out how to use this technology, originally on Ethereum, and then as we kind of built the relationship with Mark and Sidetail, we moved over to Polkadot. Our expertise really lies in sort of full stack solution. So everything from the blockchain network to the different middleware that you might need, wallets, APIs, and all of that, and then into the applications themselves, which are then primarily focused across supply chain, logistics solutions, consumer brands, or sort of loyalty and rewards in the traditional sense. So yeah, we really come into businesses, help them understand how to leverage the technology, and then deliver them solutions all based on Substrate or the Aventus network.
Got it. And so that's an interesting story. You were focused on ticketing primarily until COVID came around. So I'm assuming this is, spring of 2020. Can you just double click on that and tell us exactly what happened and how you decided to pivot?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we started in 2017. It was right after I kind of graduated from university. And back then Ethereum had just launched, right? 2015, 16. I did my thesis on that. And we saw a real opportunity in the music industry, specifically the sort of secondary market ticketing. So the way, I guess you can kind of call it the supply chain of tickets. There are lots of problems around them not selling for the prices people want or getting into the right hands. So we came forward with a proposition. We built that out. We ended up even doing a deal with people as big as sort of Live Nation for one of their French festivals, some of the various other big ticketing agencies. But then obviously when COVID hit early 2020, nobody was going to events, and they weren't going to be going to events for another year or two. Nobody knew, kind of events were canceled. So the learnings that we had done taking big companies from zero to using this technology in the early days, right? 2019 was quite early for enterprise adoption. We thought that is going to be something that many people will need in the future. And sort of late 2020, that's how we kind of pivoted and reimagined what Aventus was. And I think it was about a year later, at that time, we were trying to figure out what the best software is to make that happen. And when we did a review of the market, we just determined that Substrate was the superior technology out there. And so we used Substrate to kind of build everything out from there.
Yeah, we'll get to that a bit later. I'm going to ask you why you chose Polkadot. But first, it's always interesting to the audience how our founders, how our builders, how our teams got involved in Web3 in the first place, or crypto as it was called back then, blockchain. You said you were familiar with Ethereum, and that you wrote I didn't catch, what did you say you wrote your thesis on? Can you just tell us a bit about how you got involved in the space, and then maybe tell us about that thesis that you wrote?
Yeah, well, I did an undergrad in computer science at Imperial College and then a master's in artificial intelligence at the same place. So computer science background, you're kind of aware of Bitcoin and whatnot. I started in 2012. But when we saw Bitcoin, obviously as a transaction engine was interesting. But when we saw the ability for general purpose smart contracts, that's what kind of really got me interested in the space. So my thesis was based on Ethereum, started in 2015, looking at film rights distribution on the blockchain. So we worked with the Film Network and a variety of other UK entities to look at how you can better manage film rights. The only problem with film rights is the industry seems to lag behind the music industry a little bit. So that's why we ended up moving from film into music once the kind of thesis was published. And we got our initial investment from some guys called CoinShares.
Wow, very cool. And what an impressive background: computer science, AI, blockchain. Wow, really impressive.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you are now servicing logistics. So like what's one of your major use cases? And there was a lot of press recently around your partnership with a supplier inside of Heathrow Airport. Can you just tell us a bit about that and what it is exactly you guys are enabling there?
Absolutely. The real goal, right? What the problem that we're trying to tackle is at any point in time, between 5 and 10% of the cargo pods that go on planes, they're called ULDs, are missing. So these ULDs carry cargo, they carry baggage, they carry mail. I think everyone's had a bag lost traveling on holiday at some time, right? And that's because of these inefficiencies that exist when you move from airport to airport. Different airlines, about 5 or 10 parties touch that cargo pod from off one aircraft onto another. So the solution is really looking at how you can help, should we say, unify, act as a backbone of interoperability between the different systems that exist within airports. There's some newer entrants who have very sophisticated technology, some people still using technology from the 80s. So our solution essentially sits there, helps you track. It uses machine vision to extract information off of these ULDs. It uses blockchain to essentially create the audit trail. In aviation, it's obviously a lot of compliance and regulation around the different types of forms and whatnot that you have to create, especially for safety. So it helps that process automation and making everything efficient across the supply chain. And then it integrates with Internet of Things as well. So this is where the collaboration with Vodafone came in, where we were looking at how we can take their devices so that you don't have to manually, or you don't have to kind of pull the data off the cargo pods. The cargo pod can automatically post, this is where I am, maybe this is how the temperature where I am, various different readings from IoT sensors, and all of that integrated into the sort of blockchain backend.
Got it. So I have two follow-up questions to that. So the first is, how does it actually work? So do you have like a transponder that goes onto the cargo pod, or do you have a camera that you said you're using machine vision? So like, do you have a camera that's scanning it, or how does the actual tracking work?
Yeah, so the ideal solution is to just put an IoT device on every single one of these ULDs,
Right.
but the cost is prohibitively high from being able to do that at scale. Each airline has maybe 40,000 of these cargo pods, and if they go missing, they're paying up to $2,000 per day to rent another one from somebody else last minute. So the resource allocation task is quite an important one and quite costly to them. So the way it works is we try to work with whatever hardware was already there in the airport. So some people who've entered this market use Bluetooth beacons. The problem is every single airport has to install the Bluetooth beacons. So the only real viable, cost-effective solution was to use cameras on mobile phones. Every employee in the enterprise is issued a mobile phone. You use an app. That app you just take a picture of the ULD. To be honest, half of this problem is digitization and human error. It's making sure that the guy who's with a pencil in the rain on the apron, writing down what ULD has gone where, it's automating that process and putting it in a system that's immutable, so that when things go wrong, everyone tries to blame everybody else, but you can actually say, this is exactly what happened,
Right.
who got it when. So that's the process and the kind of hardware involved.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, why take on existing transponders and so on if you can just use what's in your pocket, a smartphone? Makes sense to me. So you talked about earlier you had a partnership when you were doing ticketing with Live Nation and now now Heathrow and Vodafone. How do these partnerships come about? Like, do you have a BD person that's going out and seeking them? Do you put, like, are you responding to requests for proposals? Like, how do you get these partnerships?
So most of the work, it's just kind of old-fashioned relationships, right? It depends at the time. The Web3 industry has been perceived as quite risky at the kind of decision maker level within enterprises over the last years. So the only way an enterprise will do a deal with you is based on trust, and they'll give you a small opportunity, and then you have to more than deliver on the little bit that you're given and kind of slowly scale that up. So I'd say it's just really traditional relationship building and really working towards that. So, I mean, partners like Mark and them at SkyTail Digital, when they provide us with introductions to a variety of people that they have, that had led to us ultimately doing a deal with EnergyWeb. Somebody involved at EnergyWeb was a former director at Vodafone. That's how we got that introduction. So it's really just working the network and building relationships and then delivering on your promises.
That's amazing. You're right. It is all about networks and not what you know, who you know, right? Dave, let's come to you next, because I think you guys have also done a partnership with Beatport. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So Beatport is one of our NFT marketplace clients. So just to give you a slight bit more background, I'm the team lead on the apps team. Aventus is kind of split into two from a dev point of view, where we have the systems team that build and maintain, run the blockchain. And then my team, we build applications that speak to and utilize like the Aventus blockchain. So one of the many products we build is a white labeled NFT marketplace. So what that means is different brands, companies can come to us and we can build them their own specific branded marketplace where they can sell their NFTs. And that goes much deeper than just images. The Beatport use case ended up going into both video and audio. So that would mean that an artist that works with Beatport can come along, mint their music as an NFT on the marketplace, and then obviously those can be sold to people that want to buy them and listen to them. But one of the major advantages that doing it this way through NFTs, as opposed to the normal kind of music channels, if you like, is that the artist can still retain, well, not retain, they can still get like on sale rights and stuff as these NFTs move on. So say they release a song with only 100 copies of it, one user can buy that, but then as it gets sold on to another, they can then kind of still retain part of the money that's in the secondary sale. So it's a really good system for allowing musicians, artists, just creators in general to kind of make more money out of the system, if you like. Yeah.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. And so are you providing like a white label marketplace, or do you have custom build these for your clients?
It's white labeled, but we do kind of do custom builds for people in a sense. So you can come to us with your branding or maybe a particular feature that you want. We could potentially build that. But yeah, it's white labeled at its core, meaning that it will run on your domain. It will be your branding, everything like that. It can be configured to the way you like it. It's in contrast to how an NFT would work on something like OpenSea, where the way I kind of describe it to people is like OpenSea is more like putting stuff on eBay. You know, it's just a marketplace for everything. Whereas what we're able to do is kind of keep people in their own marketplace that's branded the way they like it and everything like that.
Okay. And what else is your team working on at Aventus? Anything else you wanted to cover?
Well, the aviation solution that Alan was just talking about, it was my team that had built that. Awesome. There's multiple other things in there. I'm not sure what's public and what's not. So I don't kind of want to cross over any lines.
Yeah, no problem. But that does make me wonder. So how did you get involved in Web3? You know, the same question I posed to Alan in the beginning, like what's your sort of background in it? And
yeah, sure. So a decade or more ago, I kind of became a developer in the normal Web2 sense, you know, building websites and software and things like that. I discovered Bitcoin probably around 2017, I think. Probably went in the same route with a lot of people that was just like, oh, this thing goes up, like maybe I should have a play. And from there, I just got fascinated with the technology of it, you know, as all the listeners here will be able to understand. Discovered Ethereum and what that meant for having smart contracts, and it's more than just a ledger of who owns what. It you know, you can run arbitrary functions on it and stuff. So alongside me just being a normal developer, I kind of just kept on learning about it. And then I made the decision about 2 years ago before I joined Aventus that I want to work in Web3. So I just said no to basically every opportunity that came to me. And then Aventus came one day and here I am.
Got it. Yeah, it's a very familiar story. You know, working at Web2, kind of playing around with Web3 stuff, crypto, and then you decide to take a leap of faith and join it professionally?
Exactly, and just to expand on it slightly more, I originally thought that to get involved in this space, I would need to learn Solidity or Rust or something like that and actually be a pure blockchain developer. And then it just kind of clicked one day, oh, all of these things that are built, they all need a normal interface for people to use. There's a normal back end for people to use, and there's a very, very big space for your standard JavaScript developer, if you like, to be involved in Web3. And then that's just evolved into now, like I lead a whole apps team that deal with that side of things.
Got it. Thanks, Dave. Back to you, Alan. You kind of were about to touch on it earlier, building on Substrate, choosing the Polkadot ecosystem. Can you double click on that and tell us why it is you decided to build in Polkadot?
Yeah, so I mean, it was all client-led ultimately, like most of the things that we do are. We started on Ethereum as a protocol, just a bunch of smart contracts for the ticketing industry. When we reached the scale of some of the bigger clients using it, we obviously had to move to something that was more scalable. That was an L2 solution on Ethereum. So when deciding how to build that L2 solution, we had a look at the various different options. Do we want to use Ethereum itself and repurpose a sort of private network? Do we want to use, I think it was Tendermint we had a good look at, Substrate, and a few others. And in doing the evaluation in the team, Substrate kind of was by far the leader in terms of the flexibility and the amount that could be done. It was a slight downside that Rust engineers were a bit harder to come by and a bit more expensive, but that came with benefits, right? That trade-off for us was worth it. So we picked Substrate and repurposed it to be a layer 2 on Ethereum. This was before the Polkadot Relay chain had launched. I think it was only Kusama around at the time. Yeah. And so we were running like that for a while. And then when we moved out of ticketing and we started looking at wider use cases, I think I'd been introduced to Mark by that time as well. And we'd had a lot of conversations around where the Polkadot community was going, where the technology was kind of positioned. And it seemed to make a lot more sense to Substrate will work better deriving its security from Polkadot itself than the kind of solution we had built to do so from Ethereum. So that's when we kind of made the move across.
Okay. Cool. Well, we're glad to have you, obviously, in this ecosystem. You are working on a loyalty and rewards use case, or so I hear. Can you maybe talk about that next and tell us what you have planned there?
Absolutely. So this is primarily through client Enigmatic Smile. So they have, I think, over 88 different reward programs, some of the biggest in the world that they interface with through their group, hundreds of thousands of merchants that are live on the network, and a reach of over like hundreds of millions of users. So it's a Web 2 business that has been focused on this historically and now been building out how to do the sort of Web 3 version of this. So we've been working with them for about 5 years now. They came to us with help on how to best structure a system, the tokens to deal with their discount vouchers so that they can actually represent this negative value and move it around the ecosystem. But maybe at the highest level, what they do is cashback. It's a simple business where I go to a merchant with my credit card and I get 5% back. And there are various things that blockchain can solve there. On the one hand, the user used to have to get $100 before they could check out the cash back into their account and then spend it again. With a blockchain-based solution and microtransactions integrated everywhere, user earns 50 cents, can spend that 50 cents immediately again. So it's a much more efficient experience from the user's front, helps them onboard more users. On the merchant side, it's more complicated, right? You've got to build these merchants for the fiat. You've got to collect it. Some of them default, the payment timelines, traditional payment rails. So the solution there is all about how you can create a closed payment economy with tokens. And it's ultimately reduced balance sheet debt by 80% and increased their net margins by 25% through the efficiencies.
Got it. Okay, very interesting. You guys are also working on what is being called Aventus 2.0 and possibly a new token model. Is that something you could share with us yet, or is that still sort of hush-hush?
Yeah, absolutely. So this went live. This was a proposal was put forward, I think, by SkyTail Digital and us together a few months ago. MVP Studios, it was agreed by a community governance. MVP Studios has been working on it and just released their third phase report and finished everything up. So the goal is to transition Aventus. We've had a few clients like the loyalty and rewards use case, Enigmatic Smile, even EnergyWeb, right? These are ecosystems that wanted to use our technology, but they needed their own token. So the goal is now to allow these app chains to use their own tokens, but build on top of the Aventus network to really accelerate that growth for some of the clients that end up being a bit bigger. And it's the various alignment of the incentives around that.
Okay. Mark, why don't we come to you next? Because I think this also involves a new sort of token model. Was there anything that you wanted to discuss or cover?
Sure. So as Alan mentioned, we go back a number of years now, and we were part of the conversation for Aventus to join the Polkadot ecosystem and not only use a Polkadot tech. And I think that's one of the issues that is suboptimal for the ecosystem, but I think that's going to be changing more and more, that it will make sense for teams that build on Substrate also to connect to Polkadot and see the benefit there. And so, Alan and his team have done a tremendous job on enterprise and working with companies and delivering blockchain solutions. And we didn't think that was reflected, that value add was not reflected in the token itself, like functionally, but also in the perception. And so, through governance and in collaboration with Alan and team, we said, why don't we do a workshop to see if the token model can be optimized? And a company was hired by the community, by the Treasury, to do exactly that. And they've come up with an enhanced token model, which should make the Aventus network a more fertile place for teams to build on, and also for token holders.
Got it. Do you want to share a couple details about that new model that the company proposed, or just want to leave it at that?
I don't know. When is it public, or is it already public, Alan?
It's public and it was approved.
Okay, right. So then it's the question of when it will be implemented. So there are a number of things in there that, like a burn mechanism, a stable pricing mechanism, that give clarity to companies that want to deploy blockchain solutions using Aventus, and then also give a self enhancing feedback loop for the token and the token itself. And there's a treasury, an on-chain treasury that is functioning as well. So as far as the details, I think we have them here. What do you think the best way to talk about them? Alan, do you want to do it?
Sure, I can give a couple more details. We obviously don't want to go too much unless anybody wants to read their full big reports on these, but the fundamental premise is the community treasury will be used to help essentially fund initial liquidity mining programs to help ecosystems get up and running that deploy new app chains. In return, the Aventus treasury will take an allocation of those tokens from those app chains, ongoing network fees that they generate, and then use it to essentially balance its various reserves automatically. So there's a lot of simulations and detail that go into that, but the bottom line is, as we grow app chains, as we grow the ecosystem, there should be greater value capture within the Aventus treasury.
Got it. I think, Dave, this was something you wanted to speak about, was the liquidity mining. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can just explain what it is exactly a little bit more. So
yeah.
Liquidity mining is one of the new things in Aventus 2.0. And what it is at its core, in a super non-technical way, is as I'm sure most of the viewers know, a lot of tokens are traded on decentralized exchanges. And with that, you need people to add these tokens to a pool. And those users will earn rewards on those trades that happen. But what liquidity mining is it's an extra layer on top of that, where the token itself can essentially give extra rewards to people for locking those tokens in the pool. So again, like one of the things my team is doing is we're building this decentralized app to enable people to do that. So it will be the UI for people to be able to lock their token and then kind of claim their rewards as and when.
Okay, very exciting stuff. So it's been a busy few months for you guys. A lot going on.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on. Alan, let's what can we look forward to from Aventus in, let's say, the next 12 months, 18 months? Do you guys have any plans that you are ready to share now?
Yeah, well, let's look at it across the two personas that we've discussed on this call, right? On the one side, the kind of enterprise market that we're targeting, and on the other side, the more Web3 native market with Aventus 2.0 and whatnot. So what's coming now next, Mark was kind of touching on it before, are a series of governance proposals for the community to vote on. And these will cover elements like timelines for deploying Aventus 2.0, the various features that are involved, different kind of incentives that are put in place for parties to become app chains, ambassador programs, a variety of stuff. We're kind of learning from Polkadot on this front as well on kind of how to do it nicely. So that's more the Web3 audience. On the enterprise audience side, we are working obviously on a variety of deals, expanding existing deals, trying to get new airlines involved on the supply chain solution, trying to help onboard from those 200 million users we spoke about on the reward side. There's only about 1 million of them that are actually fully natively integrated. So seeing how we get that number from 1 million closer to 200 million on-chain recurring monthly users. And then it's new deals, right? We have some interesting ones looking around. We're exploring things like prediction markets and different other areas now that, especially in the States, it seems like more and more the regulatory framework. There was a recent case with the CFTC where they actually seem to be now more permissive, both on-chain US, but internationally we've seen great things with Polymarket. So we have hopefully some interesting announcements around that coming, and potentially even with the Skytail guys.
All right, exciting stuff. So how can the audience stay up to date? How can they follow along with these announcements and developments? They can follow you on X, of course, at Aventus Network. How can they find, what else can they do? Do they have a Discord server you can join?
Yep, there's a Discord server. There's obviously blog. Everybody has different mediums that they like to kind of consume, right? And we've got a whole list of them. So I would suggest just going to aventus.io. And there's a list of everything on the website there. Plus, we're launching a new website by the end of the month. So it would be nice to see some of you there and hear some feedback.
Okay. Hey, before we go, we did have a question from the audience, if you're up for it. It just says, how is Aventus Network tackling long-standing challenges like scalability, high gas fees, etc.? Kind of a pretty simple question, but if you want to go for it.
I think this is where it comes back to the technology point we were speaking on, right? The great thing we're seeing with the evolution of the kind of base Polkadot infrastructure is really helping us deal with elements like this. So scalability is mostly a solved problem for the parachain, the throughput we're seeing. Some of our clients who need higher throughput, they can now become app chains on the Aventus network. So that's the Aventus 2.0 vision. High gas fees, our network charges a fixed $0.01 cents in AVT per transaction. Now, the reason we can kind of keep it there is because you can kind of spin off into your own app chain, but also the fees associated with the former parachain auction model and now moving to agile core time works much better. You can give much more predictability to a lot of the enterprises. So combination of the technology and how we've implemented things, that's how we address these.
Got it. Well, hey guys, thanks so much for your time. I know you're very busy, so we appreciate it. For all of the audience watching, if you want to stay up to date, go to aventus.io. From there, you can find their Twitter, their Discord, their Medium, etc. And really great work in the last few months, guys, and really exciting to follow your story and what you have lined up in the future. So keeping a close eye on Aventus. So Dave, Alan, Mark, thanks very much for joining, and hope to have you guys back on soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Take care.